Welcome to the Capital Exchange. I'm Steve Wilbur, Managing Director at Allen Capital Group.
And I'm Travis Portwood, Chief Investment Officer with Allen Capital Group. So Steve, it's Shark Week, and we are fortunate enough to live close to Omaha, which has the greatest zoo in the world, the Henry Doorly Zoo, and it also has one of the greatest aquariums in the world where you can go and see sharks.
Yeah, and you know, Travis, it would be more fun probably to be there than what we're going to talk about, which is inflation.
Yeah, it'd definitely be much more fun to be down at the zoo.
You know, inflation's been a hot topic. We did get new inflation numbers this week where we have the consumer price index increased year over year to 5.4%.
Wow.
On the back of that number, the May number was at 5% year over year.
Yeah.
Obviously, those are very high inflation rates, and as the economy recovers, it continues to be on everybody's mind, obviously, right. Because when they go to the grocery store, when they're going to buy that new car, purchasing any goods or services are more expensive than they were last year. Mm-hmm. Travis, the Fed's target over time, they want to be at 2% for inflation. So why is inflation so high, and why does the Fed think or say this is transitory?
Well, there's a few factors we need to consider here, Steve. The first is it's called base effects. So your year-over-year number of 5.4% is comparing this time in 2021 to the same time last year. Think about what was going on last year. We were still in the midst of the crisis, and prices coming out of that, you would expect a steep inflation reading using that as the base number that we're coming out of. Second is supply chain disruption. We've talked about this in the past with lumber and semiconductor chips. So the shortage in semiconductor chips led to a shortage in vehicles. Car companies can't produce vehicles without them, which also led, in that last inflation number, it led to a 10% increase in the price of used cars. That's not a year-over-year number. That's a month-over-month number from May to June.
You know, Travis, that makes me think about a Jeep that I'm trying to sell right now for the last few months. And for some reason, that number must not apply to Jeeps because I'm not able to sell this darn thing.
Well, I thought Morgan made you an offer on that.
She did. The problem is her father is a value investor, so the offer wasn't quite where I needed it to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So the final factor I'll talk about today, Steve, is just pent-up demand. You know, we're seeing it everywhere. Coming out of lockdowns from the crisis, you know, people are just chomping at the bit for travel and leisure and eating out. And when people are trying to recapture those experiences that they missed during lockdowns, and a lot of dollars chasing those goods and services is going to drive up prices, at least in the interim.
Yeah, Travis, looking at inflation for the future, the numbers are really all over the place. The Cleveland Fed Reserve has an inflation model that they like, and the projected long-term inflation they believe the projected long-term inflation is 1.6%. If you look at the 5-year forward markets, or forwards markets, their inflation number is 1.6%. If you were to poll the consumers, their expectations is of 4.6%. I think there's probably a recency bias in the consumer with what they're experiencing today, isn't it?
Yeah, if you talk to consumers right after they've just purchased something for a higher price than they're used to, they're definitely going to tell you about that. But I think your 5-year forwards number, I think it's a little over 2% on the 5-year forwards of what they're projecting.
Oh, yes, actually. So, thank you for that correction. It's 2.3.
Yeah, so 2.3. So the Fed and the forwards market believe in that transitory story if they're hovering around that 2% inflation. But the question now is, what's the Fed going to do? We've had extraordinary stimulus and fiscal stimulus, monetary stimulus that's been pumped into the economy, and we've got some hot inflation numbers. And the Fed changed their mandate and said, inflation of 2% isn't a ceiling anymore. We want inflation to average 2% over time. But they haven't been clear about what is over time. So the markets are trying to figure out how far over the 2% the Fed's going to allow inflation to go, and for how long to get that 2% average. On the good side is Chairman Powell's been very transparent about with markets about when he's going to make moves, and just this week he's reiterated that he's going to let us know when he's going to make moves. So I don't think we have to fear him surprising the markets. It's just working out when and how they're going to make that gauge on the 2% average.
Yeah, I can't agree more, Travis. I look forward to seeing how this plays out, and we'll do this next week.
Great. Thank you for watching this week's Exchange.
To make sure you don't miss out on future discussions, please follow us on social media.
Make sure to like and share our videos, and we'll see you next week.